Now being recorded.
Although I do think that many of you really got a sense of them and felt like you got to know them a little by watching the film. I'm Dr. Maura Flores. I'm faculty here at the University of Southern California, and I will be trying my best to guide us through the question and answers for our participants today. So I'm going to go ahead and, because they're more important than I am for sure, so I want to go ahead and take a minute to have them introduce themselves. And we'll start with Joel.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joel Laguna. I am a teacher in Los Angeles Unified School District, and you guys saw the movie.
Great, Joel. Thanks. Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Zimble. I was one of the producers on the movie Teach. I am not an educator. I'm a filmmaker, but I am in awe of all you educators.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you so much for your work on the film, too. Great. And I believe Matt is on the phone with us.
Yep.
Hey,
Hi, everybody.
Matt.
Good to talk to you. I'm calling from Denver, Colorado, and as you can see, I'm still a fourth grade teacher as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Sean might join us later. We'll play it by ear. So I just want to thank you, everybody, again for coming. And I think to get us started, one of the things that I'd like to do is to ask each of our panelists here today just to give us a sense of what was one of the biggest things that you learned in participating in this project, whether it's as teachers or as filmmakers. I think it's really important for us as audience members here to get a sense of what was the takeaway for you. What did you learn from being a part of this experience? So maybe I'll start with Joel, and then we'll go to Lisa.
I mean, there are many things I learned from this experience. So many. Kind of like one of the coolest things I get to see is I get to see like my entire school year, kind of within the context of the film. So it was a really good chance for me to like reflect on the school year and reflect on what me and my students and I did over the year. And then with that, both the successes and the struggles, I think. Because too often we're not, and it's to reflect while we're in it. It was beautiful that the film gave us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Joel. And Lisa.
I think what I took away from this project is, I'm a parent of two, and I'm a parent who's, very involved at my kids' schools and in their education, but I did not get it. I did not get what a 24/7 hard job teaching is, and I didn't really get, the extent to which these kids in your class are your kids, and then you come home to a family, and you've got this whole other life, and it's a lot, and I'm grateful for everyone who makes it work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lisa. I mean, I agree. As a teacher myself, as a former classroom teacher, now as a parent, you definitely feel the amount of work that teachers put into caring for other people's children. And I think that is
heart
amazing.
And soul. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Matt, what about you? What were some of your takeaways, or what was kind of some of the big learning you took from this?
I think the most important thing I learned that I will definitely continue to use is that you're not at it alone. There's always great resources you have at your schools, there's other great teachers that you can use resources. So it can help you improve. And also it was great just to see that there were other beginning teachers that had challenges as well, and that, I just felt like I wasn't in it alone, which you kind of feel sometimes when we're in the classroom. So those are just two really big takeaways I wanted to make sure I, held on to.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the important things that I noticed about the film as well that I wanted to ask you all was just that to send the message out there, I think, to teachers as well, is if you could talk a little about that role, importance of having a mentor, having somebody by your side, and not going at this alone. And I felt like in the film you definitely saw that person. You saw a person for each of you that kind of really was there by your side. And so maybe if you can share a little bit with our audience in terms of what are the first steps to finding that kind of a mentor, or how do you feel about that role and the importance of it? Maybe we'll go back to Joel first, and then Matt.
Well, I've actually always been really fortunate to have great role models. And even then, I think there's also a part where like you have to go out and you see great teachers out there, like really go out and seek their help. I've always been kind of an active advocate of getting people to come in my classroom and observe me, and even just teachers who are colleagues that I trust. I think it's extremely, really important, and it's definitely helped me become a.
Right. Thank you. And yeah, definitely. I mean, just that invitation of allowing people into your room, I think, is a big deal, because I think so many times for some of our audience members, you could feel alone closing that door and kind of doing your own thing and feeling overwhelmed. So I appreciate that notion of opening the door for sure. Matt, what about you?
Well, I really leaned heavily on my cohort, basically the class that I came out of grad school with, that were all going to be teachers. They were extremely helpful. Of course, it's always nice when you have a supportive administration as well. So I think the hardest part is just, kind of putting yourself out there and being okay with getting help and, just adjusting to the learning curve of, trying something new and knowing that you're going to make mistakes. But
in this, and I'm curious, and I think others might be curious to know, how are you able to make the decisions to portray these teachers in the way that you did? Joel mentioned to the audience here that this really tracked a whole year of instruction, and so to have captured what you did, what was kind of some of your process in terms of going through what would be the right clips and how you can put this together as well as you did?
Well, the first thing was constant communication with the teachers. Joel was the easiest since he was in LA, and I used to sort of touch base with him all the time. And that moment when he's, really hit the wall and realizes that his kids or his students are just not where they need to be writing, that was me calling him at like 10:30. And just like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to make it. I'm like, Joel, don't do another thing. Don't think about it. Don't correct another paper. We're going to be there at 5 the next morning. And we threw together a crew, and we were there at 5 the next morning. With Matt and Lindsay and Shelby, it was a little harder because obviously we had to hop on a plane. But we would figure out where they were, where their kids were, and then fly in and film for a couple of days usually when they were out of town. With Joel, we just bopped in and out of his classroom.
That's great. So brings me to the next question then too, Matt and Joel. Was there anything that you felt that the film didn't show that you would have liked to have seen? Maybe Matt, if you want to go first on this one.
Oh, wow.
That's another question.
Go around. I think they did a great job of showing that, students aren't just one-dimensional. They did a great job of showing that they have successes that go far beyond just their test scores, and they have personalities, and they also have, families with goals for them. So I think they did a really good job of that. So they did a really fantastic job of showing the child as a whole person.
That's great.
Yeah, I definitely agree. No, I definitely agree. I think there was a lot it's a whole year, right? And so, in the movie is only two hours, but they did a really great job of showing, my struggles. But then, realistically, like every teacher can have a movie made out of their year, right? There's so much going on, so. Yeah, I don't know.
No, absolutely. And I think it wasn't so much to say that there were things that we left out, but was there kind of things that that you thought maybe we might have seen? Because I can't even imagine how, Lisa, and I'm sure there was tons of footage you would have wanted to as well. You had mentioned, Matt, questions, and there were quite a few as I read through them that talked about the notion of testing, because I know in many of the stories, definitely there was this element of assessment. And so I'm curious in terms of how you might share with our audience, kind of the way you perceive assessment and how you help your students understand the role of assessment in their education. Maybe, Joel, I'll start with you this time.
Well, I've been teaching just going into my 5th year, so I've kind of gotten to the game when it was like assessment testing was such a huge part of it. I'm critical in terms of testing that doesn't really assess the entire kid. I believe in the AP exam, which is why I teach the class, and I believe that it does a really good job. Like the AP World curriculum is really good. So and because of that, I'm able to really pump the kids up for the test, and so when there's a test like the AP that I believe in, I fully support. I test them. But then the California, there's other tests that maybe are a little shallow in that the movie touches on how that people only look at that score, that they don't get credit for coming or for thinking or for trying hard. So I think that was a good thing that the movie touched on.
Great. Thank you, Joel. Matt?
Yeah.
I totally agree with what Joe was saying, and it's really key for 4th graders because a lot of times we forget that, they're only 9 years old, and they get a significant amount of testing. They're consistently tested, almost to the point where, in some instances, I believe that the testing actually gets in the way of the instruction. So to try to relay a positive message to a 4th grader about, hey, it is what it is, but you still have to do your best to show what you've learned and what you're capable of. It can definitely be challenging, So it's a trick. It's kind of a double.
I think that you all, and Lisa, in your work in this film definitely showed how these teachers have used assessment in a positive way to guide and help their students become more successful. Definitely showed that. It's interesting, one of the questions that one of our audience members had for you, Lisa, I believe really in this question was, we saw these amazing teachers, and so what was the process like to pick the schools and the teachers for this film?
It took a long time. We started in June, and I reached out to different superintendents, and they sort of put the word out through their principals, and sort of got back to us with teachers that they thought might be right for. And we probably interviewed, like over 500 teachers across the country, and I probably filmed maybe, over 50, and, I would just get into their classroom, interview them for a half an hour, and then 20 minutes of watching them teach. And it wasn't always, you don't know how someone's going to play on camera, so that's a piece of it. But the other piece of it is how well they can articulate, their process and what they're feeling, and, were they willing to open up their classrooms and open up their hearts, to let us in. And I think all 4 teachers just did a beautiful job of really trusting us and letting us capture it all, the high moments and the low moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that really takes me to another one of the questions I see here from one of our audience members, and that comes back to the teachers, Matt and Joel. One of our participants was asking, why is it so difficult, do you think, for teachers to reach out and ask for that help? Because I think Lisa just said something at the very end, a lot of trust on your part to say, come into my classroom and document what I do. And so the participants are asking, the audience members are asking, why do you think that's so hard for teachers to kind of open up their doors and allow for people to help them?
I was talking to a friend about this, about just showing that vulnerability. I know, particularly we were with the economy and a lot of job cuts and things like that. Everybody was so wanting to show that they were and everything was going so excellent in their classrooms. And there were a lot of teachers who thought, everything was fine all the time. But I think the biggest thing is, you need to find teachers that you trust, coworkers that are really into education as well. And once you build that network, you can really, from there, start to ask. But I think that that's something in our profession that needs to change in the sense where we should always be asking each other, what can we do? I mean, because it's not about us, right? It's really about our students. Yeah, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think that's such an important last statement there. You know, it really is about the students and how we absolutely. Matt, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely think that we as teachers, just our personality type is we are in many ways perfectionists, and it's a lot of times very difficult to let someone see you make a mistake and be comfortable with that. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. You know, you want to go in and you want to do a great job, and you have all these really high expectations. But you know, as a new teacher, you know, speaking from a new teacher's perspective at the time, you just have to realize that there are just going to be a lot of things you just don't know as a new profession. You know, and you just be okay with that and give yourself time to kind of adjust the learning curve. You know.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much you learn in your preparation programs, and you don't realize that there's just that much more that you will continue to learn when you meet your students every year. You know, Lisa, I know you're going to have to leave us a little bit early tonight, so I did want to ask the follow-up question that folks had for you. And do you see a follow-up to this, kind of trying to track a new set of teachers or a new angle with these teachers, or maybe another year of these guys?
Yeah, another year. I don't think they would probably say yes to that. But I am now working at Participant Media on an 18-month outreach campaign around the film. So we are trying to reframe and elevate the profession of teaching, engage and inspire new teachers, and sort of reinvigorate current teachers. And we're screening at high schools, colleges, education conferences, through organizations like yours, you know, and we're trying to yeah. So everybody should go to our takepart.com/teach website and become part of the campaign, because we're, you know, we're really trying to get the word out, and we're happy to get a copy of the film to anyone who wants it and can use it as a tool.
That's wonderful. Thank you for that. And I know when you need to leave, you'll have to leave. So I want to thank you now, even though you might still stick around for a little bit longer.
I think I'm going to leave now. I'm juggling families.
Because I know questions for Joel and Matt, so don't go anywhere, everyone. You know, a couple of them come up, and so I'm not too sure, Joel and Matt, in terms of the classrooms that you've had the chance to teach up until this point in your careers, but there's been a lot of questions from the audience about special needs, students with special needs, and other kind of groups in our classrooms that have different needs. And so I don't know if you've had them in your own classrooms, but there has been questions, and I'm not sure if it's something that the TV can address, because I'm not, you know, there might be more questions about the use of the 360 classroom or the Khan Academy and things such as that I know you two didn't have in your classrooms. But just in terms of what you learned from this film in your teaching practices and how you help meet the needs of special needs students. I think folks are interested in that.
And so I taught like multiple different classes. I taught AP, but I've also taught intervention. And within that, I mean, really special needs is all about the differentiated instruction, right? And making sure that you really are reaching. I mean, every kid is so different, and so you really just kind of tailor like the class to that. I do agree. I'm happy that we're mainstreaming more special needs students in education in general. Like that's the push. But with that, right? I mean, teachers need to be, as well as they need the support to make sure that they're really getting all their kids. And I mean, it's hard and challenging, but at the same time, like, this is our job, right? To just really always differentiate, doing what you can to make sure being down to the level of the student.
Thanks.
Yeah, so one more time, could you ask that question for me?
Just kind of what are some of the things that you've had a chance to do in your classroom to meet the needs of special needs students? Because I think some of the questions might have talked about maybe the 360 classroom or the Khan Academy work, but there's definitely a lot of questions about special ed, and some of our audience members work in special needs and have had special needs students. So any kind of ideas or suggestions or ways in which you help address the needs of special needs students in your classroom?
Okay, one big one I rely on is just, like Joel said, differentiation, making sure that the work that you have is appropriate for your students, yet still at a high level and challenging, so they do start to close that achievement gap. And also, you kind of, in elementary, you have to find time to do small group instruction to really on the challenges that you students have, because they're going to be. So if you do the small group instruction, differentiation, it's the first yard.
Yeah, absolutely.
One, if I may, one thing I've always thought about making to have access, like if we're going to talk about, I always make sure that they get the same evaluations or the same end of assessment, and then see where they're at. That could be like an essay or something like that. And I still, and I will still, I might just, I'll grade it on a curve, but I still want to see where they're at, holding them at the same standards as my other students. So that would be like an essay. I still want them to complete the essay, do as much as they can, and then from there I'll adjust the grading, based on that. But I still think, we should be, I notice too often with special needs kids, we're lowering the bar too low. And they're never going to get ahead that way. So.
Definitely. I know some of the other questions that have come up, and I know that in the film we saw technology a little bit more involved in the other classrooms in a particular way with the Khan Academy work. But, one of the things that's been coming up in the questions has to do with technology. And so maybe if you two would like to talk a little bit about kind of how you use, or the role that technology might serve in your classroom, or how you found yourself kind of trying to implement some technology or continue to increase the way you use technology in your classroom. Let's see. Joel, you can go ahead and go first.
So the biggest thing with technology I find is, obviously it's amazing, right? I love when teachers use technology, but it always needs to be technology with purpose, and making sure that you're using, we can all use computers, but we need to make sure that we're using it within our education, right? Not just using it just because. And there's so much technology changing so quickly, but we must be constantly learning, right? I actually learned Twitter from my students, and then from there I was able to use it as a classroom tool. And I'm even a fan of students bringing in their own technology and bring your own UI, or kids. I don't have enough computers, or I don't have cameras, or we want to make sense, right? They all have them on their phones. Why not? Even if that means maybe breaking some school technology rules. But in the end, right, it's
Definitely. Thanks. Matt?
I definitely like to piggyback on what Joel said about using technology with a purpose. That is a crucial point. I also am a big advocate of using technology in the classroom as a good tool for research and also lessons. There are tons of really great resources online to help kind of supplement to where, for example, we have a YouTube page at our school where I'll basically record a lesson I'm doing in class, that same lesson at home, so that way if the parents are having trouble with a concept or I've taught a new way of doing math, they can see what I'm talking about. The kids can see it as many times as they need. So just things like that is a huge, huge help in the classroom. So, yeah, but definitely having a purpose to it and having students use it to their advantage, it's huge.
I think another question that's come up, and I think some of your answers up until this point may be a part of this question, and I'll go to you first, Matt. And folks have what's one of the biggest challenges? What have you found the most difficult teacher? Because I think we saw both of you in your teaching through the film. So what have been some of the biggest challenges for you? So go, Matt, first.
Oh, wow. The cure for everyone is going to be challenging, so just brace yourself. You'll make it. I would say my biggest challenge my first year was time management as far as personal life and work life. It was all work life. It would be basically, get to work at 6:30, leave work at 7:30 or 8. That was my biggest thing, and I was starting to burn out a little bit, and that's you want to do your best and work hard for your kids, but at the same time, you have to have that self-wellness so you're still fresh for them and you're, really giving them the best you can. So I would say that was the toughest thing is kind of just working too much and not knowing how to turn it off.
And how have you continued to try to balance that?
The thing was, again, like kind of leaning on other teachers to bring resources and like ways to like time manage and like to manage my time, so I wasn't using so much out of the classroom. And yeah, it's also just making sure at 6 o'clock, you have to kind of stop. Just know for yourself.
Right, and I think that's definitely something that the film showed, and Lisa had mentioned it too when one of her big learning and takeaways from the film was just seeing the life of a teacher, didn't end at 3 o'clock, and that there was so much work that went home and so many things that you were doing outside of the classroom to prepare yourselves for the next day, the next week, so on and so forth. So I definitely can see how it's a challenge to find the right balance for yourself so that you don't burn out. So, Joel, you want to share some of your challenges?
I think, one of the biggest challenges in sort of reflecting back is I think the biggest thing was I thought I had to have everything down the first year, and I was like always stressing out about making sure that everything was perfect, and I think that was really like it was pushing me. And sometimes it would have been a good thing because I was always constantly trying, but at the same time, like I think you need to be kind of compassionate on yourself and realize like what, you're not going to do it all. You're not going to in the first year. And this other teacher told me this brilliant piece of advice. He told me, teaching is a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. And we need to, and from that, be constantly improving, but know that, you're going to get better, especially to your first year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I think that's definitely a theme that has been kind of resurfacing repeatedly tonight in our panel here, and that is just feeling okay with knowing that there's so much more to learn, and that we can invite people to help be part of that journey for us, and it's okay, and it's going to be a struggle, but with help and support, I think teaching is absolutely an amazing profession for folks. And so with that, I think I'll transition into thinking about, as one of our audience members had asked as well, is what's one of the most rewarding things for you as a teacher, both maybe what you experience or just even in your lives as teachers. And so I think I started with Matt last time, so I'll go ahead and start with Joel this time. Just some of the rewards you do.
In terms of, there's a reward every single day, right? That's the thing. It's like, I think one of the biggest things is, like in the film, right? There's those moments where you're teaching and you feel like you can't do this. And you feel like you're not going to make it. And I think, but that you not giving up, right, and keep going, I think that reward for your students and for yourself, like accomplishment, right, we're doing something great as a team. And I mean, there's so many, there's innumerable rewards that can be the things for, my kids getting in a call and helping them, get on that way, or even just I work with some kids in reading levels or writing levels, and there's big victories, but there's also small victories that you need to take those too. So it's innumerable. I can't count.
Absolutely, absolutely. Matt, what about yours?
Oh well, I would say the biggest reward is seeing a student improve, and not necessarily just academically, but of course that's the goal, but also seeing them feel like they can accomplish things and that they are more confident and they feel that, yes, with some hard work I can really, achieve my goals and I can, do, what I want. Now, that's probably the biggest reward you get. And of course, the relationships you build are invaluable as well. Having that trust in them and vice versa, it's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's kind of a quick shift, but a couple of the questions that have come up had to do with kind of not so much challenge of the role of teaching, but more of the day-to-day, and there was questions about management and classroom management or classroom environment and establishing the classroom environment. One of the questions that was asked had noted that we didn't see a lot of the establishment of the classroom environment in the film. It kind of seemed to have been established, or if there maybe were moments and things that we didn't see. And so one of the questions asked, in what way are you able to build a positive classroom environment to do the kind of work that we saw you do in the film? And so, Matt, I know you just finished, but I think I'll start with you this time since I started with Joel last time. So kind of what are some of your, tricks to classroom management or ways that you establish a classroom environment?
Oh, wow. I'm really big on like a child-centered classroom to where the students feel empowered to make their own decisions and also, initiate different like goals or rewards, things like that, just to make them feel like they really have a stake in the classroom and the direction that the class is going. Of course, there are always structured options, but they feel like they have options nonetheless, and that makes them kind of take more ownership of the class as well. Another really big one, I'm a really big advocate of meeting the parents like in their own environment. One thing I know my first year is a lot of parents were really intimidated by coming in the classroom. So if you open yourself up and maybe go to one of their, go to their house or one of their events, they feel more comfortable and more empowered, so they're a lot more open to, likely to open up, and then it just makes the kids see you in a totally different light. And that's a really huge just personal relationship builder. And, once they feel that you care about them, they will do whatever it takes for you.
Great. Joel?
Yeah, actually, I saw the question about classroom management and how come they didn't address it. I mean, it's a 2-hour film, so they can address it. There's a lot of things they left out. But the biggest thing is, in terms of classroom management, is like rituals and routines. Yes, they started filming me like about a month in the school, right? So we were already kind of established those basic ground rules. And just in general, it's really kind of you setting the parameters for your students. And then with that, right? I mean, my first year I didn't really set so many rules, and then you find yourself playing catch up towards the end of the year with rules, rather than going, rather setting a very structured classroom at the beginning, and then from there you're able to get to a place where you guys are a lot more, you can get more comfortable in the class, and the kids still make it a more welcoming environment.
Great. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, definitely, as you said, with the question that was asked, we couldn't really capture everything, but it was definitely obvious that you had all established a really positive classroom environment, and which is what had helped us see the kind of work you were able to do in the classroom. There was a question here for you both about, well, I think Sean might be on soon. There was a question for you both here about how long, now that you're in the trenches as teachers, I think some of you have seen the difference in terms of your lesson planning processes when you were in your credentialing program versus maybe what you do now as a teacher. So one of the questions had asked about kind of that process, like how long does it take for you to lesson plan, and kind of what's involved in that process for you. I believe I started with Matt last time. So Joel, what is that lesson planning process like for you, and how long does it take?
Honestly, my first year, I was coming home at like 8 o'clock at night every day, and so I was coming home late, and I thought I was doing something wrong, because I'm like, how is this possible? How am I coming home so late? But towards like the first 2 years, honestly, I was every weekend lesson planning for hours. By now, I'm in getting in my 5th year. It's a lot. I mean, I have my materials already set for a lot of it. I may make some tweaks here, but it gets easier with time. I would say lesson planning in terms of objectives and goals, and it really was not until my 3rd year where I had like a set. I was set in general in terms of like my objectives and my daily plan. So it takes time, but you'll get there.
Great, Matt. Would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Same thing with Joel. That first year is a tough one. But as time goes on, you get more efficient, you get a lot more efficient. So you kind of have a better idea of like the structure of your lesson plans. They come a lot quickly. And, so it does take a while in the beginning, but as you do it more, it go a lot more quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure, Sean, can you hear us? Do we have you? Oh, I'm not sure if you're on mute, Sean, but I definitely saw your mouth move, so I think you can hear us. Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. So because I didn't know if Sean was ready for some of our questions. I think we had a couple questions for the work you were involved in, Sean, in the film. So, did you want to introduce yourself, Sean? Some questions? Oh, let's see. Ladies, we can't on yet. I don't know if we can help him with this audio. We can see he's talking, so we can't hear him. Let's see. That's going to be one. Oh, okay. So it looks like they're going to help him get up and running. So we'll give Sean a minute. And, you know, it's interesting, Joel and Matt, I was thinking if Lisa had made the comment and said, I don't think these guys would let us live for another year. I was curious, you know, when she said that, like, how would you feel about that? Do you think it would be something that you would be interested in being a part of again? Let's see. I think I did. Matt, what do we think?
It was very interesting. I would say, and I think Joe can back me up on this, and it's, real teachers, our number one priority was the students and the parents and the teaching. So, sometimes the film kind of, they kind of got on the back burner. We would forget about them, or we would, out of the way, But they were doing it. I think I would still be open to doing it again. It was a really good experience.
Thanks, Joel.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like getting into the project. I didn't know how expensive it was going to be. But you know what? Like, I think they asked me at the end, like, would I do it all over again? And honestly, yes. Because it was beautiful. I mean, now seeing the end product and seeing like my students featured so well. I really appreciated that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I would agree for the two of you, just seeing I think the benefits and the beauty of everything that you did, over the course of the year. I think, Jill, you said at the very beginning how it was amazing to see just the whole school year in this film, and so to see the success of your students, to see them grow, and to be able to watch that. I think one of the things that we talk with our own students about in our programs has to do with the ability to watch yourself teaching and to reflect on that. And so I think a follow-up to my question here is, what is that like, and have you had opportunities to continue to, I think Matt had shared that you record yourself and you upload it on YouTube. So Matt, do you also watch those and kind of reflect on what you're seeing in your teaching? And then when I come to Joel, have you had opportunities to continue to kind of watch yourself on video, and kind of what's been the impact of that? So, Matt, why don't I go to you first, since I know you already are talking about you record yourself on and you upload those videos. Do you watch those and use those as a reflective tool?
Oh, well, yeah, I try. I'll look at it.
I'm going to get off right now.
When you get on there, they kind of get to see the lesson again. But I do try to look at them and, kind of tighten it up a little bit and make sure I'm being clear in my delivery. I think that's a good practice I can always use, is making sure I'm being clear enough and direct, because that window of attention is just so small with all students. You want to try to get as much bang for your buck every minute you talk, but it's definitely a huge tool. And
is that something you've learned from watching yourself versus just kind of self-reflecting on your day, just seeing if the students are all...
So when you watch yourself, you notice a lot of the little things you do out of habit, so that's nice to do. And also reflection, so both are key.
Definitely. And Joel, what about you? Have you had a chance to watch yourself on film, and what impact has that had on your reflective process as a teacher?
Well, I remember doing film during the teaching class, right? Getting my credentials.
Right.
And ever since that, right? And so that was. It's always awkward watching. Even like now, it's still awkward watching now. So. In terms of afterwards, I don't really do like video record myself. I do, however, have a lot of people who come in and like friends and have this and they come in and just observe my class, and vice versa. So they give me notes that way too. So that's kind of how I watch myself, I guess.
Yeah, and I know that a couple of the questions had talked about, and some of them were more specifically focused on asking about the Khan Academy work and the 360 classroom, but I think just even watching the whole experience that both of you went through in that one-on-one mentorship work, and even, Joel, you're talking right now about how you watch others and others watch you. I think what some folks would be interested in knowing that came up in some of the questions is, like, how do you start this? Like, how do you start that process of being open and ready to really look at your own practice and have somebody else looking at it too. I know we've talked about this notion of how difficult it is to let people in the room, but what would you feel is step one? You know, like what's step one in starting this kind of development cycle as a teacher? Joel, I'll come to you first this time.
I really think it comes from a place to like make sure that you're building allies in terms of and I mean going to like I was lucky I went to UCLA. And I had a really strong cohort network, just like Matt said he did. And so with that, you know, I had a lot of people who were having the same struggles as I was, and then we were just discussing, and from there we were able to come together and problem solve, right? And then, and really, I mean, I know, and as I said earlier, like, I'm thinking about a lot of reflection. In the first year, you're just struggling to survive, right? First and second year, but then as you're getting, you know, you're kind of perfecting your craft. You really start reaching out to the people that you trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And Matt, do you want to add to that?
Wow, yeah. The only thing I would just add on is also just kind of preparing yourself to be open. You know, one of the nice things about being a new teacher is that you're kind of a clean slate. So me personally, I would try to take information from anywhere. Or anyone who is, you know, good and willing to guide me, just be open to it and know that, you know, you're going to learn some great things from a lot of different sources. So, you know, just kind of stuff up, be receptive.
Yeah. You know, I noticed in that you had mentioned earlier, Matt, about just kind of the role of parents, too, and maybe during this whole filming process things got a little chaotic. But, you know, we did see the role of the parent in your class a little bit more, Matt and Joel. We didn't really see it in yours. So do you want to talk a little bit about, Joel, you know, what the role of parents are in the work you do with your students at your level?
Yeah, honestly, yeah, we didn't really see much of my parents, actually, at all in terms of the film. So realistically, I mean, building parent networks has been so crucial. Getting a strong group of parents who really support you is amazing too, particularly when you're taking risks in the classroom and stuff like that. Having both parent support, both even whether it be with administration, but also like in terms of getting the parent on your side for classroom goals too. When you're having issues with the kids and the student, like talking to the parent and kind of being, or you and the parent kind of sit like a team, a year-long team to be like, you know, we're having some issues, but we're going to solve this together. I've seen some things that have been impossible that I felt I could not do alone, and that probably the parent felt the same way alone, but together I felt wonderful.
Yeah, that's helpful to hear, because you're absolutely right. I mean, in the film, we didn't see parents. We just kind of saw you and your students and kind of all the work that you did to go into the accomplishments that you had. And so it's nice to hear kind of your perspective. And so folks also realize that, you know, these students were older, but there's still an important role of parents in their education, and that they continue to be part of that education for their kids. And, you know, Matt, we had a chance to see you kind of one-on-one with the parent of the students in the film, and so maybe if you could share a couple of ways that you also involve parents in your classroom.
Oh, well, let's see. I always try to keep open door policy and let them know they're more than welcome to always come in and visit, you know, just observe the kid, ask me any questions. I always ask them what their goals are for their students, you know, and also ask what has worked with them in the past or what they would like to see. Just being open like that, I really think makes them feel that they have a much stronger voice in the classroom and kind of opens them up a little bit. And again, outside the classroom as well, like what I've noticed is a lot of teachers feel uncomfortable, not teachers, parents can feel uncomfortable in that school for whatever reason, maybe bad experiences, but meeting them, you know, even at a coffee shop or in their home or somewhere where they feel comfortable helps them eventually get more comfortable going to classroom as well. So just being open to, you know, meeting with parents outside of a regular setting, I think makes a huge difference.
Great, thank you. And Sean, I think we can hear you now. Is that right?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, great. So I'm so glad you were able to join us. Welcome, Sean. Do you want to just introduce yourself really quickly and your role in the film? I know folks saw it, but if you'd like to just introduce yourself.
Yeah, Sean Kavanaugh. I was the assistant principal at MLK Junior Early College and also the creator of 360 Degree Math.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know that, Sean, we did have a couple questions about 360 math from our audience, and so I hate to kind of get you jumping in right away since you just got on. But, there were definitely a couple of questions, and some had to do with kind of how do you get started with kind of that whole change that we saw transform in the classroom when you helped her change her whole classroom into that 360. Kind of what's the first step if someone would be interested in something like this?
Yeah, to be honest with you, it was a surprise. I mean, the teachers came back after the summer, and during the summertime, I went in over the break and installed whiteboards on all the walls of all the teachers' classrooms, and they didn't have a heads up, so it was a surprise for sure.
Got it. So then step one is get whiteboards, put them all around the classroom. Absolutely.
Whiteboards on all four walls.
Now, is it something that you've continued to utilize, and has it expanded into the other math classes at the school that you are an assistant principal at, or is it still been focused in on just kind of one classroom?
Yeah, it just finished up year 2. I'm no longer at MLK. I'm a principal of my own middle school now.
Okay.
We're bringing it to my middle school this year. And
so
we're super pumped. We're just doing all the training for our teachers now in Denver, and I couldn't be more excited. It's unbelievable, the impact it's had.
That's great.
Sean,
go ahead, Joel.
Hey, Sean. Actually, I've never met you. Sorry, I've never met you in person.
Hey, Joel, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm doing wonderful. Just a quick question, actually. And 360 math is a great idea. I was just wondering, in terms of inquiry, does that help to also foster inquiry in terms of math?
It does, because it illustrates this kind of social network, and when you put kids up on the wall and it becomes the audience, really the performers, they're left just to think, because that's all that's for them to do, which is pretty amazing.
Awesome. No, that was just my question about it, but it looked awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. I think, Sean, one of my other questions for you that seemed to come up in the chat, I think, and for me, Joel and Matt, I was just kind of shooting at Sean there because I know the two of you had a chance to ask a lot of questions here. One of the questions that has come up often for everyone, and so maybe in the context of a 360 classroom, Sean, and that is the challenges. What are some of the challenges that you've learned from, that you've actually experienced from this, and have you learned from them, and what's kind of where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, there's small challenges. Everything from, we had no idea how many markers we were going to need, and after the first week of school, our teachers were calling me and Sean, we need more markers, and we got to the point where we knew exactly how many markers to order every single 30 days, and what we were going to use for erasers. And so there are challenges like that, but there's also deeper challenges because it threatens traditional pedagogy. It threatens the way that we've always seen math being taught, or really teaching in general. Equation and puts them almost in the back seat. And for teachers that, especially in math, that are so used to being the sage on the stage, it changes the whole dynamic of the classroom. And having kids standing up and walking around and talking the entire time, it's difficult, and some teachers struggle with that.
Yeah. So how might a teacher prepare, do you think, for that? There's
no preparing. Yeah. There's no preparing. I think you just have to be in it. You have to be in the middle of the classroom. You have to be able to see all 30-something kids do math at the same time. I mean, for the first time to be able to see 30-something odd kids do math on the walls, it's mind-blowing. It's fast. It's incredibly fast. And you have to know your math and be able to see the misconceptions and adjust quickly. And your verbal presence is critical. So there really is nothing to prepare you for. You just have to live in it.
Now, since the film point, you just mentioned that you completed year 2, and I know you're at a different school now, but is there something that we maybe didn't get a chance to see in the film that has changed in your process in year 2 in how you approach 360 math?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is just the problems that you present kids with. Many people feel like that it's very procedural math that you have to do a 360, which is not true. And so we really moved beyond that procedural part of it into what Joel was referring to, which is that inquiry phase. And so how do you get kids really thinking and speaking at a very deep level? And so it's just about progression. It's about getting better at writing the right questions and having the kids grapple and engage in the right mathematical thinking is a big challenge.
And I think a couple other things that folks might be interested in, and that is, because I know we're time is of an essence, so I think one of the things that people might be wondering about is when you look at, for those audience members that are in states that have adopted the national standards, the Common Core standards, and you look at the math practices that the math standards, ask of students, how do you feel, are there parts of 360 math that we're not seeing in the video that maybe have changed or are part of meeting the Common Core standards, or is it all just kind of really part of what happens in the 360?
Yeah, I think the big thing is 360 is not a curriculum. It's just an approach.
Right.
You can use any curriculum, any standard. I think, the interesting thing is over the last, decades and upon decades, we've tried to change standards before. We've tried to change philosophies before, but what we've really never done is never matched how we teach to how kids learn. And so it doesn't matter what standards you throw at it. It doesn't matter what curriculum you throw at it. 360 is the approach. And so I think that's an important thing to distinguish the fact that 360 works with any curriculum, any standards, that and anything. It's just the approach.
Okay. I'm glad you answered that. I think that was important to note because I know some folks, when they look at these kind of new ways in which we've approached teaching, whether it be in math or in English or in social studies or so on and so forth, there's always a lot of concern. They say, well, now we have these new standards. But really understanding, as you just shared, the distinction between when we talk about pedagogy and curriculum and instruction. So it's great to know. One other question for you, Sean, and then I think I'm going to do a final question for all of you. But one other question that kind of came up, Sean, and I don't know if this was something that you had in the classroom that you were helping with, but there was a question about meeting the needs of special needs students. And so is there something different in the process, or is the process in and of itself kind of set up to be able to assist the needs of special needs students?
Yeah, interesting. We found that it had 360 had its greatest effect on two groups. One was the English language learners, and then two were really special ed students. Because for the first time, again, it's so critical to see why the kids are making the mistakes they're making. So where in their thinking are they going wrong? And you can't know that unless you see them doing the math. And so, what we really found was it breaks down all barriers. It's great with all groups of kids. We were blown away with the success it had in the immediate culture change. I mean, that was the biggest impact was, you have kids for the first time now with math being their favorite subject. And so it was something they look forward to every day, and it just changed the entire culture of math at our school.
Yeah, and I know I said one more and I was going to do the everyone question, but I have one more because this was something we asked of Joel and Matt before, and I think it's really important to get your perspective as an administrator, and that is, we talked a little bit before about how important it is to work with others and to trust others and to allow people into your classroom and to feel okay knowing that you're going to get feedback and that you're trying so hard to do everything correctly, but knowing that that's not the case as a teacher. You learn every day. So I think an important thing maybe you can talk about is how do teachers reach out to administration? How do you build that relationship with an administrator, I think, to have the ability to learn and open yourself up to learning from one another and not feeling evaluative, feeling more as a support and as a learning experience.
I'll tell you the one thing from both Joel and Matt really, that really inspired me through this whole process is to see how deeply they care about their students. And those relationships that Joel and Matt obviously have with their kids is the same type of relationship that school leaders have to have with their teachers. That's number one. I think number two is it's always been taboo in education to coach and to evaluate. I think that's something that has to change in education. You have got to be able to coach and evaluate, and it can't be two separate silos. It's got to be one. And so I think, number one, you've got to build those amazing relationships with your teachers. And then number two, through those relationships, you build trust and openness to we're all in this together. And ultimately, we all care deeply about our kids, and we want their success, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I think Matt shared that with us earlier, too. And Joel, if you really take it from the perspective of this is really about the children. And so we want to be open to learning. And I agree with you both as teachers, but as administrators as well, to opening yourself up to helping your teachers realize that you're there as a coach, not just as kind of an evaluator that will say good or bad, but that you're there to say, let's work through this together and let's build a relationship to where I can support you and what your needs might be. I know that we're running kind of low on time, but I do have a question, I think, for all three of you, and that's something that came up more often than once from our audience, and that is just advice. Kind of what is that one piece of advice that you have for new teachers getting started out in the field, or if you want to take from the perspective of for a veteran teacher, because I know that for a few of you still not, I know, Sean, you've had more years of experience teaching as an administrator now, but just a piece of advice. I mean, a lot of folks are asking kind of what kind of advice do you have for them as teachers. So let me see. I think I'll start with Matt, because I haven't picked on you in a little while, Matt. So I'll start with Matt, and then we'll go Joel, and we'll end with Sean.
Okay. I guess there are two big things. The first one I would say is, I know kind of to circle back to what they talked about with classroom management. That's going to be key there. It's going to be a really big key to success to make the students feel comfortable, to make sure you can deliver your lesson. Got to have really good, effective rituals and routines in place when you first start off your first year. That's a huge one. The second thing is also, like I said before, be comfortable knowing that there is going to be a learning curve and you are going to make mistakes. So give yourself a break, search out those resources, and you'll do great. You'll make it through.
Great. Thank you so much, Matt. And for your, not only for your participation in the film, which we know takes a tremendous amount of trust and compassion and love for what you do to allow people into your classroom like that, for all of you, but also for what you've shared tonight. Joel, what advice would you have for folks? Oh, let's see if I know he had to step off.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there he is. Okay.
Okay. No, so I'm going to piggyback off what Matt said, a lot of beautiful things. But also on top of that, just making sure, just knowing that, like when I felt a first-year teacher, I felt like a big failure, just because I felt like I couldn't do it all. But just realize that you might not be able to do it all, but you're going to be able to do a lot. And just be really forgiving on yourself. And as long as you keep asking those questions, and you're doing amazing. And so just really just making sure that you are always still to just do the best for your kids and take risks. I think that's one of the biggest things. Because teachers who don't take risks their first year don't take risks their 30th year. So take risks and just go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think both of what you both shared is something even as veteran teachers in all my years in the classroom. It's been about 20 years in my work in education as a teacher and as an instructor, and I think that's something that we can continue to live by and to learn by. Take risks and continue to build those relationships, absolutely. And know that even with 30 years under your belt, 20 years, you're still going to have those days where things may not go as we planned, but we'll learn from them, and the next day will be better. So, Sean, what about you?
Yeah, I would say smile day one. When I was coming out and teaching, they always tell you don't smile for Christmas, and I will tell you that's wrong. Smile day one. Day one is when you build relationships with kids. That's when the journey begins. Smile, give high fives out, tell kids how much you care about them every single day. Don't wait till Christmas. I think the second thing to go back to what Joel was saying is absolutely take risks. I mean, you get the chance to spend time with kids for 8 hours a day. If you can't have fun doing that, it's the wrong place to be. I mean, this is the place to have fun, take risks, do crazy, fun, wild things. Just have fun. I mean, you're dealing with kids. Content comes second. It's about kids. You teach kids. You don't teach curriculum. Please remember that. We teach kids, not curriculum.
Yeah. And, Sean, I think earlier Matt had mentioned that he continues to record his work and he puts it on YouTube, and his own school community gets to learn from it. With your program being so innovative that you designed, are you also continuing to kind of show the growth and the development of this instructional practice in certain ways?
Yeah, we're getting there. I mean, we do some trainings across the country. Different schools invite us in. We're trying to build. It's just so hard when you juggle trying to be a school leader with trying to do this, which is it's such a fun thing to do. But this year, having it at my own school again, having all of our teachers doing it we'll provide some opportunity to get some more videos and get things out there. So we're looking forward to that.
That's great. And then, Matt, I didn't know you. Is it restricted YouTube, or can folks see your wonderful teaching if they look for you?
Unfortunately, it is a restricted YouTube just for my class.
All right. But, I think what we can learn from it, though, I think all of you as teachers, and something that I am passionate about in the work that I do at the university in teacher education, and that is just thinking about the role of a video and kind of watching yourself. I think we saw that in all of your stories is teachers being open to watch themselves and learning from what they see and their teaching, and being open to knowing that we all have room to grow. So I just, again, want to thank all three of you, and for your patience, Sean, with our technology to get you on and be able to hear from you, because I think folks really were grateful that you were able to get on. I know it was a short amount of time, but, I mean, the information you provided was so important, as folks had lots of questions for you in the program that you created, and congratulations on that and the work you're doing with it. And to all three of you, thank you again for coming tonight, spending the time here. I know you've spent countless hours with this project, and we've all learned from it, and you continue to let us learn from you. So I just want to thank you for the time that you gave us tonight as well.
You're welcome.
Any last comments? Okay. Now, well, and those of you who had a chance to join us tonight, again, thank you for coming. And Lisa or Alicia, any last comments before we just sign off here?
No, thank you. Keep going for it, guys. Keep going for it.
All right, absolutely. Good luck, everybody, and thank you for being teachers and administrators. Take care. Have a good night or day. Bye-bye.